Well, that was great. Really glad he was able to come in last minute. He is entertaining and swears a lot, but he is totally the real deal. So I hope that was helpful. So next up, we're going to change up the order a little bit. Steve got here a little bit early, which is great. So we had really good timing with our speakers walking in. So next I want to introduce Steve Bell. Steve, I've known him for a couple of years. Met him. We both worked at Trilogy software, although not together. And then I invested in one of his companies. That company was doing a bunch of interesting things in China. That unfortunately didn't work out, but in doing so, he got really plugged into what was going on in China, and then ended up starting effectively like I'll let him describe it, but at some level an incubator and an early stage investment company in China. And so I haven't seen him much since then, because he's usually in China. But he fortunately was back here today, and so I invited him to come in and talk a little bit about I think there's a lot of interesting things we can talk about, but in particular, what he's seeing that maybe is different over there, if there's any different trends in the startup that he sees, and any kind of lessons that we bring back towards, if you're working on a startup here, how to think globally, think about what's going on. So,
awesome, great, nice to be here.
Yes. Cool.
Hi everyone, I'm Steve Bell. I run a seed stage fund called Trilogy VC. I invested in 25 early stage startups in China in the last year and a half, about a little more than one a month. We always give about 2 years of cash, always the first investor. And I'll share with you a little of my thoughts about China as soon as I get on the projector.
There's a button on that little...
I think I got it. There we go. No?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. So Josh kind of caught me off guard today. I was actually here visiting my two kids who were in college. They're both on spring break. And I left the US to do my third startup, which Josh was my first investor in 2006, and so I've been in China since about 2006. It's nice to be here tonight, and I'll talk a little bit about startups in China and some of the differences, some of the things that are similar, some of my experience so far. The biggest difference in China with a startup here compared to China, what do you think the biggest difference is?
Language?
Government?
No, I don't think it's the government. I don't think it's the language. I think one big difference is it's 7 times cheaper. So the cost of technology-based startups in the first couple of years in China, very, very low compared to here. Other big difference is there's no early stage investors there. Very, very few. So entrepreneurship's just starting. So every VC fund's there, tons of private equity money, but it's all for established companies. So there's a big hole for early stage companies getting funded. So that's what I did. So I invested in 25 startups last year. These are some of our portfolio companies. I'll share 1 or 2 stories of them in a few minutes. Just like Noah said, I heard the last half of Noah's talk. I can't agree more with some of the stuff he said. I love doers, so what I'm looking for is doers. I run, in addition to funding startups, I run an incubator. It's a hacker boot camp that runs into a 90-day Y Combinator program. Everyone in the thing wears a t-shirt. I am a doer, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for small teams of doers that are going to build great products and build great companies. So every month I talk to a couple of thousand students. This is a class I do at Tsinghua University, which is like Stanford in China. The young people in China are very interested in being an entrepreneur. I think one of the things that's kind of fascinating is I'm on my 13th, 14th iPhone, and every time I buy one, right on the back, made in China, right? And it's always cool. I'm always like, amazed at how cool the thing is, right? But it's interesting to me, made in China. And I was reading something a month or 2 months ago about the supply chain for this and the cost of this. And so when I buy it, it's $600 US, right? $400 of profit. And the made in China, it's not just made in China, it's the process engineering, the production systems, the logistics systems. It's like 95, 96% of the value add. But of the $400 profit, only $3 stays in China of the profit. So all the work in China and all the profit, California. And the Chinese are smart, so they get that, right? And so what you see is a big change in how young people think about their future and a lot more interest in starting the next Apple, the next Google, the next Facebook, except doing it in China. So the young people are very interested in entrepreneurship. We do this class every 2 weeks, and every time packed out the door, 300, 400 students. And we do it at 5 universities. Tons of interest in entrepreneurship. And I think that's great. I don't think it's a zero-sum game. I don't think they win, we lose. I think the more they win, the more we win. And so I'm excited to be a part of that. But that's just an idea of what goes on there. I'm an engineer. I started 3 companies. I started my first company in Europe. It got really big. It's $1 billion a year tier 1 automotive supplier. Still exists, still thriving today. I then started my second company in California in the dot-com boom years. I started an internet B2B supply chain management company, raised $47 million in venture capital, and sold it. And then I started my third startup, which Josh was my first investor in, and we ran out of money. And right after I ran out of money in my third startup, I switched. And now I just invest in startups. And I think as Noah said, I can't have more respect for you guys. I think it's wonderful to be the entrepreneur and to be the startup guy. I loved it. I did it 3 times. But it's the hardest thing in the world. And my job now, whoa, very easy. Very easy. Anyway, so that's just a little bit about me. I am a startup guy. I think this is the same in China as it is in the US, so I'll start with a little question. So I'm doing my second startup, and my first startup was successful, made money. And so I had that success, and I need money for my next startup. I took every penny I had from my first startup, and I built a product, and I built a small, like less than 10-person team. And in the first year in my second startup, we had a cool product, and we had our first customers. But I was out of money. We had no more money. So I needed to get some money. So I went and I talked to a friend of mine who's this industry insider, like an angel investor. And he offered to give me $500,000. Yes. I was very happy, right? I was very happy. But it was 1998, and the dot-com boom was booming. So before I took his money, I went up to Silicon Valley, and I pitched to some VCs, and they all loved it too. And they offered to give me $7.5 million. And so I had a choice. Do I take $500,000 from the angel, or do I take $7.5 million from the big top VCs?
What's your burn rate?
I had 10 people. My burn rate was, I knew that that $500,000 would last me a year and a half, and I knew that in a year I'd be profitable in Detroit, with the automotive industry. So I knew with $500,000 I could get the business profitable. So my burn rate was very low. It was less than $20,000 a month.
I would stick with the first one.
So why? Why go with the first one?
You have more control over your company.
Okay. You mean someone only giving away 25%?
Yeah.
Okay.
You also wrote the word trusted. I hope that is for a reason.
Yeah, yeah. He was a very good guy. Yeah. Somebody else said I should do the first one. Why?
So you're not taking too much investment in the beginning that you don't really need at the time, so why do that?
Okay. And why is too much investment bad?
Because you need return later on, so
Okay.
more expectation.
Makes you fat and bloated at the beginning too.
Okay. Cool. Who thinks I should do the second one? Go ahead. Hold on. Go ahead.
Agree with them on the first one. Seems like from what I've heard, smarter money. You have somebody who's willing to invest in you as a person versus like whatever your idea is, as well as providing you with advice and resources outside of money, just like human capital stuff.
Okay. Okay. Cool. But I think sometimes it's more talk than real.
That's it.
But there are good ones. There are good ones.
Question?
Yeah. Yes.
That phrase, top big name, is that similar to trusted?
No. No, that just means they're very famous. The first guy's trusted, but not famous at all.
Yeah, but don't you get famous by being good?
Yes, you do. No, and they were good VCs. They were good VCs. I don't know. I wouldn't use the word trusted, but
You shed doubt on the common promise to give you more than money. You shed doubt on that. I was wondering whether this firm was a bullshit artist or whether they really were a top big name that had earned it.
no, they had earned it. They had earned it. They had earned it.
I think you should take the 7.5.
Why? Why?
For the reasons that you've already heard. That is,
Okay.
in getting out into the marketplace, the credibility, the help, the
Yeah.
working, and not only that, you have plenty of resource. And the difference between 25 and 40 is that much.
Yes. Okay. Anybody else share the opinion? Take the 7.5
Is this
million.
real? That was a real choice?
Yes, that was a real choice. Very real choice. Yes.
I'm curious what kind of company you wanted to build. I don't know what stage.
A big, huge one. I want it to be bigger than SAP. I want it to be bigger than I2.
But you take the second one.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think with the second investment, you have the ability to grow your company bigger.
Yeah. You have the ability to do a lot more stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they're invested in you doing one hour stock too.
Okay.
Not
Great.
just a problem.
Great. Great. What do you think I did?
Second.
What I
You
said
won.
you did.
You
The first one.
bootstrapped.
What I actually did was I did do the second one. And I did the second one, and I took 500,000, and I invested that in the first industry, automotive industry. We got to 10 million in revenue in 12 months. We were profitable. It worked great. But I had $7 million more dollars, and I had big VCs, and let's go, right? So we put sales offices in a bunch of different countries. We took our product that worked really good in the automotive industry, and we pushed it into every other industry, consumer packaged goods, aerospace, electronics, pushed it everywhere. We raised another $40 million. We got to 290 people. We had nice offices. We were cranking. We had one industry, the auto industry, that was profitable. Everything else was just bleeding cash. Bleeding cash. And then we were raising more money. Because we had burned through the 7.5 million. We had burned through the other 40 million. And we were doing our Series C. And it was 2001. And we were closing in September. Yeah.
No, you were.
And a couple of planes hit the World Trade Center, and my startup crashed. And my takeaway from that was that more money, not always a good thing. And I think especially in the early days. In the early days, what I've learned and what I've seen in my 25 startups that I've invested in is the only thing that matters is building a great product. A great product that your customers love so much that they push it to their networks. And when we had so much money, before we had a great product, we were scaling. We were building large sales operations. We were pushing it into multiple industries where it was a great product in one industry, but it wasn't a great product everywhere. And so before we had the great product everywhere, we were selling, we were marketing, we were doing all these other things that took us away from building great product. And that's why we crashed. And if I would have taken the 500,000 and we would have focused on that industry, built a great product there, built another great product in the next industry, it would have worked out better.
So you should have taken $500,000 from the big VC.
Oh yeah, yes. But the point, my takeaway from that, from my own experience, is that more money in the very early days is not good. It is not important, and it can get in the way of doing what is important, which is building a great product. And so my advice to all of you young entrepreneurs here is, in your first year, the only thing you want to be spending money on is building a great product. Nothing else. And if you have too much money, you're going to do other shit that doesn't matter. And so, that's my point, is that low capital forces focus, and it's a good thing. Some other examples. I asked the students in China to name for me some great companies. And I'll ask you guys, name for me some great companies that over the last 20 or so years have built global, great, huge, unbelievable business.
Recon.
Good answer. Keep going. Apple, yeah. Facebook, yeah. Google, yeah. Microsoft, yeah. So I ask this question to students all the time, and usually the first 4 companies, or at least the first 4 and the first 5 that I hear, Google, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook. I hear it all the time, those 4. And then I ask, what's the same about those 4 companies? What do they share in common?
They're tech companies.
They're tech companies, yeah. That's what I invest in. Who are they started by? Students. That's all I invest in. Students, young entrepreneurs, yeah. All started by students. How much money did they raise when they started? How much money did they use in their first round? You think it was the 7.5 million, multiple millions, or was it less than a million?
200,000.
A few hundred thousand in each case. And so I think it's kind of interesting and illustrative that the biggest companies, the companies that change the world, the companies that build these global brands that everyone knows in the world, wow, started by students with less than a million. And I think that's pretty cool if you're a student and you don't have a lot of money. Because you look back in history and students start the biggest companies and they do it with very little money. When I ask that question in China, the other thing that I hear is they're all American. And they are, right? They are. And I think in a few years, the next one, the next Google, the next Facebook, the next Microsoft, maybe it's going to be one of you guys. But it'll be another student, and it'll be American. But the one after that, it's going to be one of those Chinese kids at Tsinghua University. And that's who I'm looking for. Yes, sir?
Did you count how much money they raised before they went public?
No, I was just talking about their first round. The first round that they initially built their first products on, their first investment rounds. They all then raised a significant amount more capital down the road. But the point I'm making to the young entrepreneurs is, you don't need a lot of money when you get started. You just need a little money. And with that little money, take that little money and go do this. Okay? Where this side of the graph is anything external. The number of users, the number of dollars, not the number of lines of code. Not the number of employees and not the number of desks, but external stuff from the market. So amount of revenue or number of users, and go from 0 to 10 million. And when I'm, as your first investor, I'm giving you time. I'm giving you 18 months at least. And what I want you to do is I want you to build and release your first shitty product quickly. And then I want you to make it better and better and better and better and better over time so that you get 10 million something before you run out of money. And if you're a startup and you do this, all the big investors will give you all the money you need to get to the next level. And they don't care how old you are. They don't care what your background is. What they care about is, holy shit, you got 10 million? So that's what I want my startups to do with the first money. Yes?
Do any of the companies you invest in have physical products? Or are they all
No, they're all tech companies. I invested in one that was tech, hardware-esque. It died. Hardware companies typically take a lot more capital. So I'm very focused, just mobile internet, consumer internet, games. That's what I want when we invest, yes.
Oh, you mentioned earlier that it took less money in China to start a company. I just wondered why.
Because the average salary in our startups in China is 2,000 RMB a month, which is about $400 a month per person.
Nice.
So it's 6, 7 people paying themselves $300, $400 a month, eating noodles, working 20 hours a day, living in their office. It just doesn't cost anything. Yeah.
So how do, if you're starting a startup here, are we all screwed?
No!
How do we compete with that?
I mean, what a wonderful country to be in to do startups. Because I think that there's the talent here, that there's other like-minded students that are interested in startups that you can pull on. I think all those things are harder in China.
That's what
I think government relations, the rules and regulations on business are much clearer here than in China. So I think here's a great place to do startups. I think the key thing is you got to build something that's cool and innovative and interesting. You got to build a product that matters. Yes.
there was that kind of leads directly to what I was thinking. It's the Economist loves putting out these when will China eclipse America, blah blah blah, and they always throw in this.
Soon.
They always throw in this. Well, they don't have the culture of innovation. They don't have this culture of entrepreneurship, which America always has.
Bullshit.
So that's why I was asking you, how accurate is that? Like,
It's
what's going
bullshit.
on?
No, I think the American media is very, very one-sided about China, and I think I mean China's got a change of government happening right now, and the amount of press in the U.S. press about the change of government in China is like nothing compared to the amount of press about, I don't know, some movie star who, you know, threw up on their, you know, taxi or something, right? So, no, I see a ton of innovation happening in China, very innovative companies. Their biggest tech companies are nothing like our biggest tech companies, like Baidu or like Tencent is a good example. Tencent started out as a copy of AOL Instant Messenger, but today it's the first or second, maybe second biggest tech company in China. And it's nothing like anything in America, right? It's a mixture of Facebook and Twitter and AOL Instant Messenger with Yahoo in there, right? It does everything. But all of its revenue, 90% of its revenue comes from games. But it's not just about games, right? So I think there's very innovative companies in China. You do have what I do see is if I'm talking to students at UT and I say, how many of you guys want to do a startup? In this room, 100% of the hands go up, right? But in a random group of students at UT, it might be 20%, 30%, right?
That many?
At maybe 15%, okay? At Tsinghua University, their Stanford, 400 people in the room, it's 4 hands go up. So the number of people interested in doing startups is still relatively low in China. But you have the law of large numbers. There's 5 times more people, right? So even though the percentage is less, the number of people interested in doing startups is increasing, and it's increasing rapidly. And as these role models start to exist, as China has their Bill Gates and their Steve Jobs and their Mark Zuckerbergs, I think we're going to see more and more. Yes?
So, yeah, I was in China last March.
Yeah.
It was pretty amazing. I do agree with you that there's just a ton of innovation going on. But, and you sort of mentioned before about the government relations. And I was interested because if you're investing in a lot of consumer web companies and you get into things like freedom of speech and
Yeah.
privacy policy, like what sort of additional things do you have to worry about because of those types of issues?
I actually don't think about that stuff at all and don't worry about that stuff at all. What I care about would be the same here as I care about there, is I only want to be involved with companies that are doing stuff that's good. That's good for society, that's good for the world, that's good for the community. I don't want to invest in startups doing bad shit. And in China, if you're going to do good, you need to follow the rules. do things that work with the rules and regulations in China. So I don't want a startup that's going to spread, you know, bad things about Tiananmen Square massacre, for example.
How do you prevent that if it's like a social network or something like that? Or I mean, are you
The startups have to be smart about it. They have to build in mechanisms to keep the content good, right?
That's known as censorship.
It could be community-generated up-down buttons, for example. But yes, that is real in China, right? And if you're going to be a startup and not care about that and be reckless about that, you're going to get shut down.
And all your money.
But I don't think it's something. The government in China doesn't give a shit about the startup with 6 people and no users. So the only time the government's going to care is when you build a product that actually matters. And I want you to build a product that matters or does good. Right? Yes.
So, Noah talks about the outsourcing. Is there an opportunity for teams here in the U.S. that need to bring on some technical people to work with a team in another university?
No. I don't know what Noah said about outsourcing. I wasn't here for that part. I think outsourcing is very hard for tech people in a tech startup. I mean, if you're building a tech product or a web product or a mobile app or whatever, and you're going to outsource engineering in the beginning, I just don't see how that works.
This kind of gets back, you know, my top 10 things about what to outsource, or how do you start what to outsource. I would generally say, you know, outsource the things that are not your competitive advantage.
Yes, so outsource cleaning,
Right.
outsource the
If you're
accounting,
cleaning, it's your app.
outsource the
You're
payroll. But if you're building a tech company and you're going to build technology-based stuff, you can't outsource tech. And I think, especially in the early days of a startup, the spec is unknown and fluctuating and changing very quickly. It should be, right? You should be learning and releasing and learning and releasing. You can't do that when you don't have your own engineering team. And the second problem you have is if you're a good outsourcer, you're not going to do work for a 5-person startup. So if you're a startup trying to find outsourcers, you're going to get the shittiest ones out there. Because the good ones don't want to work for a 5-person startup. So I think it's very hard for a startup to do that. Very hard. I think once you're big and you've got a product that's great on Android and you want to port it to iOS, yes, there's companies in China that can do that. Yes. So just a couple of examples of companies that I see. This was a fun one. This happened a year ago, but it's still very funny to me. I met this guy, this student, and I really liked him. And I liked his team. And he showed me his app, his mobile app, and I loved it. I thought it was really cool. And I said, how much money do you need? And he said, $5 million. I said, holy shit, $5 million. What are you going to do with $5 million? And he got a little upset. He said, how much do you think I need? I said, I don't know, 500,000. And he got pissed. Anyway, we ended our little meeting. And I got back to my office and I had this email from him. And he said, Steve, but if we take 10x less, we can forget about a nice office. We can't hire 2 engineering groups. We can't build Android, iPhone, and Symbian. We can't do marketing. We can't do IP. We can't do legal. And I was like, yes, exactly. Exactly. Because if you're the startup CEO and you're doing all this shit, who the hell's building the product? And that's the only thing that matters in the first year of the startup is build a great product. And if you build a great product, this stuff may matter in the future. But if you don't build a great product, nothing matters. So don't spend time on any of this stuff. And I think that's really cool. If I'm a student and I know the only thing I have to do is build a product, and I have a problem, and I'm building a product to solve my problem, so doable. None of that other stuff matters. Just build a great product. So a year and a half ago, I I met these 3 kids, young kids, Zhejiang University. 3 coders, 3 hackers. And they were building Android games. This was a summer and a half, 2 summers ago now. And I loved them. They built their first game, like in 15 days, and released it. So I invested. And in 6 months, they built like 20 games. And they had 13 million downloads, and they were making they were profitable. Holy shit. I introduced them to Sequoia. Sequoia gave them more money. They didn't even need any money. 18 months, this is getting to be about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. 200 million downloads. 10 million, that's about $1.5 million a month in revenue. $1 million, US dollars a month in profit. 3 kids. They're #1 in the whole world in Android games, #1 in downloads, #1 in users, #1 in revenue, #1 in profit. 3 kids. They never spent any money on marketing. They spent no money on promotion. They spent no money on anything except building games. And they're really good at it. And this is back to my point that when startups focus on building product and they build great products, great things happen. You had a question? Yeah.
It looks like they've probably used some pretty simple games and just churned out a lot of really simple games.
They built a game a week in their first year. They built 50 games in 1 year. And their games were very, very simple. Many were copies of other ideas or ports from iPhone to Android, right? They built, what, Fruit Ninja came out? And then my startup here built Fruit Slice, right? And they got like 20 million downloads in a month. What they were really good at, though, is cross-selling. So if you had one of their games, all of a sudden you had 3 or 4 because they were really good at that. Right. And about 4 or 5 months ago, they switched to much more immersive social games, and they changed their revenue model to virtual goods, and they 10x'd.
All that after a year of making games every week, they're really good at making games.
Yeah. But now they're becoming they went from these simple games to these much more immersive long-play games. Yes?
So they still 3-person team?
No, there's 65, 70 people now.
Oh, okay.
But they still, it's very cool. They're organized in 2-person teams. So every game gets built by a 2-person team. In the old casual, in the simple games, now it's changed a little bit. But it was 1 coder and 1 designer. And they'd get the game theme from the leadership team, and they'd have 30 days to release. Very small teams. I invested in a startup called Jivus that built something like Add This, something like Share This. I saw like 20 of these teams building something like Add This 2 years ago, and I invested in this one. Very young guy from Beijing, 4-person team. They built the best product. So there were like at least 20 competitors, all copying the same US guy. They built the best product. They made it work the best for the local market. No marketing, no promotion. They're getting a couple of million clicks a day on their buttons, and they're cooking half the internet population in China every week. Because everyone sees their buttons. So they kind of know what's going on with the internet in China. And all the search engines are trying to buy them now. So that's I think what I see is the winners are the doers, are the teams that focus all of their energy and all of their resources on building great product. And that's all they do in the first year and a half. Those are the teams that I see win. And I think it's the same here as it is there.
That's awesome.
So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them. I'm also happy if any of you guys ever get to China. I'm based in Beijing and Shanghai. I'm happy to see you in China also. Yes?
You seem like
shit. No, I think every entrepreneur will share this, that one of the differences that entrepreneurs experience in their life compared to everyone else is, I think our highs are really high and our lows are really low. And you're gonna have both. And like, you know, the day that Shanghai, my third startup, the day we ran out of money, I can't imagine a worse day or a worse feeling. And I think for, I don't know, it was a few weeks, you know, I couldn't do anything, right? After that, you know, after the wheels came off that and we ran out of money, I'd say it was a couple of weeks where I didn't do anything, right? It might have been a week I didn't leave the house.
So what got you out the door?
Eventually the light goes on again, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go do this, right? And then you're off to the next thing, right? And I think Noah said it too. When your startup's going well, even when your startup's not going well, I never felt like it was a job. I never felt like I had to go to work today. And that's how I feel about what I do now. Like, it's not a job. Like, I love what I do. But I think when, you know, for me, when things went bad and I had it happen more than once, those lows are really, really low. But eventually you're gonna just have a new mission. Go do something, right? Sitting around doing nothing. I think you need some recovery period, but it should be not too long. So I don't know what my real answer is, except one day I saw something else to go do. And I think that's also just another comment about being a startup is it's much more important to do than to get the answer. And you're trying to think about your new product and your new features. No one's done it before. No one's built what you're building in your startup before. So nobody can tell you what to do. And instead of keep thinking about it and asking people about it, thinking about it, it's better to just do it, to build it, to get users. Right? Yes?
You said you picked the companies that had the best products. How did you kind of decide what was the best product? Did you look at any specific metric or anything like that?
You mean when I invest?
Yeah.
If I said that, that's not what I meant. What I look for when I'm investing is a team of doers. I'm looking for a team of people that I think are great. A team that I think has, you know, has good thought processes and are smart, but most importantly, that they're doers, that they have a history and a track record of building stuff, of doing stuff, that they have a history and a track record of determination, of perseverance. That's what I'm looking for, is a great team. And I have to kind of like the product, but I don't have to love the product. And a great team is going to take an okay product and make it great. And a shitty team will take a great product and make it shitty. So I'm never looking for the great product. I'm looking for the great team. Yeah.
So how do you go about sizing out for a new entrepreneur with no track record?
Everyone's got a track record. So if I see an entrepreneur and they're, you know, 22 or 23 years old and they're in their 3rd or 4th year of university and they're a coder, what have you coded? What have you built before? Oh, you're a web designer. What have you designed?
Okay.
Right? I saw a guy that's building a food delivery service at his university. What have you done before? Right? And he organized this club, and he started this other club, and he started the basketball thing that they have going, right?
Yeah, other aspects.
So I think there's many ways to show what